In September 2023, my newborn baby was swapped in the maternity hospital. My little girl Isabella was born last September. I had a really healthy pregnancy, I had a great birth, and quite shortly after she was born, she was diagnosed with jaundice. This is a condition that yellows the skin. It's to do with the liver. It means she needed to be under a phototherapy lamp, which was attached to like an incubator crib. Because of my anxiety, the size of the ward, how many babies were in the ward, the nurses suggested putting Isabella in the nursery. It was just across the hall from me. I then went to bed and I woke up at about 4 a.m. because obviously I was just worrying and overthinking. On my way to the toilet, I popped my head into the nursery and I saw Isabella's crib in there. She was still the only one in there, so I popped over to the toilet. On my way back from the toilet, the nurses popped their head out the office and said, "Oh, I've got your baby in here." In my head at that point, I was just thinking, great, I've just gone in and stroked someone else's baby's head, because obviously I thought it wasn't Isabella in there anymore. One of the nurses was holding a tiny little baby in the same blanket as Isabella was wrapped in. The baby had a dark head of hair and an olivey skin tone. So obviously I just trusted what they were saying to me and assumed that that was Isabella. They then told me how much I looked like my daughter, which I thought was really sweet, and I took the baby back to my bed. I can't have had them for too long because I think the nurses were doing obs every 3 hours, but when they came around to ask if I wanted some tea or coffee, I asked them when Isabella needed to go back into her lamp. She told me she was going to go double check with the other midwives and that I should just get Isabella dressed down into her nappy, so that's what I started to do. And this was when I quite swiftly realised I was not holding my baby. Everything was the opposite of my daughter. So I got up, I went to the office and I just said, "You've given me the wrong child, this isn't my baby." Her face went white. Of course she apologised, took the baby off me and left the room. She then came back and the explanation behind it was that I look exactly like the other mother. Luckily, Isabella was completely fine and so was the other baby I had. I'm just so glad it was noticed as quickly as it was and that both babies are now happy, healthy and home with their families.
That is horrific. You always hear these stories, don't you, like in films and EastEnders when the baby was swapped, but God, that's horrific. God, you can't even imagine the poor mothers, probably both ends of the babies, like different swaps, must have been going through. Oh my God, that's so stressful. How on earth? Don't get me wrong, I'm not even going to slam anything right now. I'm going to be very mutually what's the word? I'm not going to have an opinion on this, but that is really scary, mortifying. Like, this poor mother, she's probably thinking like, you know, my baby needs to be in this lamp, like they've told her she's going to be having drug withdrawals, like she needs to be monitored very closely. And she's there like, hey, and doing the nappy, and then she just sees the complete opposite gender of this baby. Oh my God. I would not know what to do. I'd probably start hysterically crying. That is so scary.